With our title of the show, Dots, Lines, and Destinations, is there supposed to be an Oxford comma? I really don't understand it.
Well, it depends on if you believe in the Oxford comma or not, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it's like our show is
lines
dots.
and destination. Lines and destinations are two separate things. So if you believe in the Oxford comma, then yes.
Okay. But I don't know.
I was raised without it, and I'm not particularly keen on changing because I'm a stubborn son of a bitch.
You?
I know you never would have guessed that about me, right?
No.
Oh, man. Hello and welcome to episode 115 of Dots, Lines, and Destinations. It is Thursday, August 4th, 2016. I'm Stephen Seagraves, today joined by Foz Mahmood and Seth Miller. Hey, guys.
Good evening.
How's it going?
Pretty good. We have some different topics to talk about today. And
well, thank goodness. Otherwise it would get boring, right?
Yeah, you can't do the same thing over and over again.
I forgot to mention this to you before we started, but I would like to have a little bit of housekeeping for those people stuck at home rather than those traveling this summer, especially as hot as it's been in New York these days. Watermelon and a melon baller and a freezer makes great ice cubes for vodka.
Is that how you've been cooling yourself off?
I am, in fact, doing it right now. I just wanted to point out that it's a great way to get a little extra flavor in there, and stay cool in these summer heats.
Yeah, we had 2 days of 90 recently. That's about as hot as it's gotten, and it's been 74 the rest of the days. So.
Yeah, and you guys don't really have air conditioning out there, do you?
Not a lot of people don't. No, so when it gets hot, we have AC just because we're from Texas.
Yeah.
So it was like we had to have it.
Yeah.
So do people just get in their cars, turn on the AC, and drive around aimlessly?
No, actually most people just go out.
There's no way they could do that in Portland. Is there, like, all that fuel wasted and stuff?
Oh yeah, there would be an outrage.
That was a trap, for the record.
Okay. Sorry, I missed that one.
So for this week,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
That's what we get for not recording this all in the same room. I couldn't, catch Foz's eye with the wink to let you walk into that trap.
For this week, the dot is Newark and London City. Those are the two. We have two dots. The first is Newark, and kind of just like all the airlines that are showing up at Newark. And there's some new changes coming as far as Alaska. Ethiopian has started their flight. What else? There's a lot of stuff going on.
It's like the second coming of Newark.
It is. You joke, but it is. This is the DOT said, hey, look, you guys have been on time for so long now. And by the way, on time is like 80%. So apparently the DOT's threshold for anything useful is pretty shitty. You guys have been on time for so long now, we probably don't need slot controls anymore. And they basically opened it wide up.
See, the way I view it is they're punishing United for with not using all their slots to make sure things ran on time, which seems so back-ass words.
Well, right, it's cutting off your nose to spite your face. Haha, United, you didn't use all these slots that you've been hoarding and preventing competition, and that's bad for consumers. We're going to let everybody show up, and anyone who wants to can fly. But all the flights are going to be delayed, and that's also bad for consumers.
And then there's going to be another outrage. My big question is, where are all these airlines going to park their planes?
That is a damn good question.
Because all the terminals are pretty full. Terminal B during the day has some space, but I don't know if you can exit domestically out of the two piers in B.
Out of both? You don't think you can?
You've got to be able to.
Yeah.
Delta had flights there for a while, right?
No, only international arrivals, and then they moved the plane over to B1.
Oh, so you're talking about specifically B2 and B3.
Yeah.
Sorry, now baggage claim might be the issue. It's no big deal to, open up one of the hallways and let people walk through it, right? You just open the door.
In theory. You're applying logic to an equation that normally does not have logic.
Well, it's the same door you board through. It shouldn't be that hard for people to walk in. You're going to have the issue of, if there are two planes trying to exit at the same time and one has to go to customs and the other doesn't, you've got to deal with security control.
Getting them into the pier itself is fine. I don't know if there's a way out of the pier.
Oh. Is there not, a side hallway up the
Why would there be? There's no reason
for employees and things like that. just like the whatever Starbucks or.
I don't think I've seen it. I mean, I haven't been through there recently, but historically, I don't ever remember there being one.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be some way for like the lounge employees and those folks to get in and out, or get out. But
wasn't there talk about at Terminal A, they were going to start expansion there, like they were going to start construction, and doesn't that just take up all of those parking spots where near Southwest?
That plan was like 6-7 years ago, and it never moved. But it was basically demolishing the A1 pier, building a long pier, and then that would dovetail back out along the parking area and the monorail line. But that thing's been stalled, and I mean, to give you an idea of how long ago that was when United was pre-merger. United was still an A.
Oh,
wow!
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean. Just looking at who's coming, though, we've got Virgin added a couple transcons, or Alaska Airlines adding a few, Allegiant is adding 4 destinations, Ethiopian upped its frequencies, Spirit is showing up. I'm sure I'm missing some, but it's going to be interesting.
Well, and I guess the good news, though, is that it's all mainline stuff, and it's not a lot of regional, because that's really what holds up the traffic at Newark. Right? I mean,
it does. Well, the regional holds it up because there's so many of them, but you throw more mainlines, it's still going to be a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing we don't know is what is United going to add? Right? I mean, I can't imagine that they're just going to sit there going, well, we're not going to add anything when everyone's coming in, because what ends up happening is when they eventually go back to slot controls, you get you get the percentage that you had.
Yeah.
Right. And so United's got to keep pace, so to speak. And arguably, right, to keep pace, that's keeping pace plus adding back all the ones that they theoretically should have been operating.
Yes.
Newark, Harrisburg.
Do you think they'll put Allentown back as a flight? Have a Q400 just to hold
instead of the bus?
Yeah, instead of the bus.
I want to know if they'll bring back White Plains.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I think United they'll have to add something. Maybe they'll try to go head to head with, say, Spirit, and maybe Alaska. JetBlue isn't doing anything new, are they, Seth?
JetBlue's got a Barbados seasonal that they're adding, but they also announced this massive order of 321s in the next 3 to 5 years, 30 more airplanes.
Yeah.
And a bunch of them are coming in Mint configuration, which means transcon service.
And do you think that they could start some of that out of Newark? Or do you think they would want to?
I think they could.
Yeah.
I don't know that they want to necessarily, but I think they definitely could. And there's some interesting market reasons that say they should.
And what like what?
Well, they would be LA or San Francisco still, but much like with Virgin and Alaska merger going through, this right now, Virgin is actually the only airline that flies to both Newark and San Francisco from JFK, or excuse me, San Francisco and Los Angeles to Newark and JFK. They're the only one that has both.
Yep.
I could see JetBlue adding a couple of transcon flights to try to match that. United's not going back to JFK. Delta's not going to put transcons out of Newark. Neither is American. So it could be an interesting play to try to sort of better capture that market.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And there is a decent, west of the Hudson sort of world that lives in the New York City tri-state area and really likes flying out of Newark instead of JFK.
I mean, do you think JetBlue would just go into Newark to piss Alaska Virgin off?
Yes. I mean, not just to do that, but that would be part of the fun.
Yeah. I mean, they can compete. They won't really be able to compete much with United. They'll definitely take some business away, but United will just flood the market if they need to.
It's already flooding the market, and it hasn't stopped everybody. That's the thing.
Well, yeah, I don't know if they're really flooding the market, though. They clearly have the demand to meet it.
Yeah, I'm just saying, are they going to how do they go more than hourly, I guess is my point.
Every 45 minutes or larger aircraft.
Okay, thank you, Captain Obvious.
I mean, we already agreed they need to add more flights, so why not just keep throwing flights every half hour, every 45 minutes?
Yes, obviously that does work. I mean, I get the rationale there. I just would think that those are expensive to operate, and they need the frames to do that. They don't have enough, I feel like, of the bigger mainline aircraft to do that. Now, that said, if transatlantic market stays as soft as it has been, you could see frequencies getting cut and maybe some of those planes getting reallocated domestic.
But a lot of those flights right now are the Continental 75s, and most of those are coming off of the European routes at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're going to have.
But that worked, right? That worked because they brought down transatlantic 7.5 service in favor of 7.6s. Like there's been this whole cycle of regauging everywhere.
Right, but in the winter, they're not going. Most of those routes are not going to 7.5.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. They could actually either cut frequencies. I mean, right? We saw this the other day. We were talking about it that Dublin is getting a 777 this winter. Right? I mean, so speaking of ridiculous things, I don't think we talked about it on the show, but we were talking about this elsewhere. Dublin getting a 777 is kind of crazy. It's only one a day instead of two a day, but it's a 777 for goodness sake.
Yeah, 50 premium cabin seats. I mean, that's kind of nuts.
Versus the 32 that a pair of 7.5s is selling, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
30 actually, because they don't sell
two of them.
I thought they would. Even at Dublin, I thought Dublin was short enough.
No, even on Dublin they block it, I believe.
So
Okay.
here's the thing, Foz, that I don't know about. Like, what makes me unbelieving in your theory that they could run service every 45 minutes is that they're still running 16-seat 752s on the PS routes in some cases when they have the actual PS 752s with more seats, so they could put more. It's like they don't trust the market. It's like they say, oh, well, we think Newark, San Francisco, or Newark, LA isn't hot enough, in air quotes, to support a bigger jet, and so they just don't put it on there. Or occasionally they put one bigger jet on one of the flights.
I mean, are you saying they're using the PS aircraft on something else?
No, I think
LA?
the PS flights are mostly sitting on LA, and they, for whatever reason, San Francisco is light. But then you look at fares and you're like, this is insane.
Yes and no. I think it's just the way the demands work. I mean, LA definitely has, I think, a few more. But San Francisco gets a few as well.
True.
I mean, they only have, 13 of those aircraft. Right? And if they're doing 12 flights a day from each way, there's just not enough aircraft. So I think it's more of a rotation thing.
Yeah. I just don't, I mean, it seems crazy to me that the fares are so high and JetBlue, and I say fares are so high very superlatively. The fares are higher than competition when you look at the routes. Like if you look at Delta's cheaper in a lot of cases.
Yeah, because there's no competition to Newark.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't really consider Virgin competition.
Yeah, but then we always talk about them being kind of like co-terminals, like that Newark is still New York City. Right.
Continental years ago removed that verbiage from all their fare bases, so Newark has never been a co-terminal for LaGuardia and JFK.
Yeah.
As far as Continental was concerned, and that rolled into United.
True.
Yeah, but
Right.
I mean, there's the question of how much of it is based on what actually happens versus what's in the fare rules, right? Are they really separate markets, or does the airline just treat them that way?
You know, honestly, from a leisure standpoint, they are not separate markets. From a business traveler standpoint, I think they are different markets.
I think you're probably right there.
Yeah.
So
I find the whole thing it's kind of crazy the fares are so high. And I mean, I understand the no competition part, but you have JetBlue and Delta and American all fighting for JFK traffic, and Newark, United sitting over here in Newark going, we can charge whatever we want. And I wonder if that's actually kind of backfiring a little bit for them.
I also do feel like in advanced purchase world, so as more leisure folks, which is more of what I pay attention to these days, United does match like the $5.99-ish JetBlue fares from time to time. So it's not completely separate, but I think probably closer to walk up it definitely is.
Yeah. Yep.
And those fares are limited. Like you'll get them on the 6
Sure.
a.m. flight, but you won't get them on the midday flight.
And that's why I'm on a 7:30 out of JFK in August. Well, I got Mint for $5.99. You better believe I'm taking it.
Yeah. what was the next thing here? Oh, well, we were going to talk a little bit about, because we kind of covered two topics there. United and Newark, and a little bit of their Mint expansion.
The JetBlue thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I want to just expand on that a little bit. I mean, one of the other things that has been brought up on that is Europe, which is going to be real interesting to see how that plays. They have not formally committed to serving Europe, but with the order of the 30 321s, 15 of them are NEOs, and JetBlue has the option to make them LRs. I think 9 of them or something like that. And the LR is obviously the 752 replacement at this point, able to cross the Atlantic. So from Boston, it was an interesting sort of earnings call last Tuesday, where they were talking about this order and really did their best to play it down. We don't know what we're doing yet, but because this is what we ordered, we have to disclose it kind of thing. But also talking about, we see some business fares out of Boston that are super expensive that we think we could compete on. And if you look at what the markets are served out of Boston, it's Paris, it's London, it's Frankfurt are the big ones.
Yeah.
Seasonally, there may be others, but I know those are sort of year-round and well-serviced. So, I think it's going to be interesting how that plays, just to figure it out.
Do you think that, so with Boston, do you think that they could have enough of them? Well, I guess they have a pretty good amount of traffic in Boston. So do you think that they would be willing to file, traffic up that way? Or do you think they would try to run some stuff out of JFK as well, direct to Europe? I mean, it makes sense to run it from JFK.
It does make sense to do both. The challenge there is, like everything else at JFK, slots and access and whatnot. So
yeah,
I could see them doing both. I think it would be hard to isolate the transatlantic in only one of those hubs, especially if they want to grow it more organically and sort of have just more traffic like that. But it would not surprise me to see a big push out of Boston to get there.
Yeah, and here's my problem with Boston. I've watched Lufthansa and a few other carriers. They've kind of lightened their load to Boston. So Lufthansa removed F. They just don't see a market for F anymore in Boston. And British Airways has gone to, 787-9, I think, out of there or something. Virgin Atlantic has done the same thing. Do you think that JetBlue, I guess with smaller planes, they theoretically don't have to fight the same market issues that the bigger carriers with bigger planes are fighting?
Well, it's smaller planes, and also they're trying to go in at business class. They're not trying to have the first class. These planes aren't going to have a ton of seats.
Yeah.
So, I think that they wouldn't have too much trouble filling them. The other thing is, they keep saying we're going to go in with aggressive fares. So obviously filling a plane at a cheaper fare is easier.
Yep.
If they can do it and make money, more power to them. The numbers on Mint that they released in this last quarterly earnings call were something to the effect of RASM on Mint planes was 20% higher than the rest of the fleet.
Wow. And
part of that makes sense because there's a premium cabin to sell, which doesn't exist on the other planes, but 20% is a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of cash.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so one of the other things we wanted to talk about as a dot was London City, and there's an expansion coming there as well. And it's kind of the same issue we're talking about with Newark, is where do you put everything? Because they're actually going to make London City bigger, the actual airport itself bigger.
Yeah, but at least there they have somewhere to put it. They have room.
Yeah, kind of. I guess the middle of the river, is okay.
It's exactly where they're going to put it, just along the waterfront there.
Yeah, and did they say how many gates they're going to add? It's pretty significant, right?
7 stands.
Yeah, because they don't have gates. They have outdoor. Basically, you walk
parking
out.
Stands.
Yeah, parking stands. Yeah.
So it's 7 parking stands. It's a full taxiway. That's what makes the difference.
Gotcha.
For operations there. So by having a proper taxiway available, they don't. Today now with departures, you back taxi on the runway.
Yep.
Getting rid of that means that they can actually open up more consistent operations. They don't have to pause for 5 or 10 minutes to get a couple planes down to the end of the runway, let a couple land and get off the runway, let a couple take off, and then repeat. They can actually sort of smoothly flow that whole process.
Yep.
So it is really going to make a big difference in terms of operations there. Now, just how much it expands remains to be seen. There are still noise restrictions in terms of what's allowed to happen, but it's based on a total noise envelope profile sort of thing.
Oh,
so
okay.
it's like each plane is assigned a certain amount of noise, and as long as the total amount of noise doesn't increase past where it was previously allowed, they can continue to add flights. And that envelope is going to get, treated better, so to speak, because the newer planes are much quieter.
Yep. Makes sense. It's good news. I mean, I love London City. I think it's awesome that you're right there in the Docklands, and it's just a short commute, and it's kind of a cool airport to fly in and out of, especially when they were running the old Avros and stuff in there. So I'm happy for them. I hope it goes smoothly. I wonder how long it's going to take to do this to construction from start to finish.
I don't remember. I looked it up at one point. I don't remember. I mean, what I would say is I'm certainly happy for them that it's coming. I just am amazed that London is finally going to see any sort of progress on growing things.
Yeah. Yep.
Don't worry, Heathrow and Gatwick will still keep fighting.
Yeah. Well, I guess, and the part of it comes from, I guess Boris Johnson had blocked it when he was mayor of London, and he's now the foreign minister, I guess, in the newest post-Brexit government. And so he had blocked this extra construction. And now that he's gone, the new mayor's like, no, I think it's a great idea, and basically agreed to do it.
Well,
so it was it had already been approved sort of thing. But
Boris was also vying for Heathrow's third runway.
Yeah.
He's got an agenda. Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad. I mean, I hope it goes through. I mean, is this going to end up like another Tegel? Well, it can't, I guess, if they never build it. But, it could end up as an issue. Let's talk about lines. Thai has had their red flag removed. So Thailand has had their red flag removed by the FAA. And so they're free to fly to the United States again. And Thai Airways has mentioned that they would like to fly to the United States again nonstop. And this is coming off of their news that they're going to have A350s and 787s. And I think the A350 has the range to do it, to San Francisco, anywhere on the West Coast, really. What do you guys think they'll actually do this? I mean, they had the one-stop flight, right, through Seoul.
Well, they had non-stops too. Remember that. They had the LA flight way back in the day.
Yep.
And the JFK flight.
JFK was non-stop, and then one of them, I thought JFK eventually became a one-stop also before it disappeared. No,
JFK just went away. Then it was LA. It was only LA, and then they did LA Seoul.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I remember the LA Seoul move. Yeah, I mean that was with the 345s that were flying gas tanks that didn't work or were just too expensive when fuel prices went up. Could they do it? Sure. It's a little closer than Singapore to the West Coast, so a 350 can make it. Singapore's going to do that. Singapore Airlines. So obviously it is physically possible. Is it a good idea? Since when has that mattered for Thai Airways?
Yeah. Do you think it'll just be? I mean, because the LA flight, LA Seoul has gone away, right? Because of this red flag, it's gone.
Well, they could keep operating it despite the red flag. They were demoted to level 2, I think, or whatever, which meant no new routes, but they could continue operating anything they had.
Okay.
But they were losing money hand over fist.
So is there really a market for Bangkok, U.S. nonstop?
I don't think so, but that doesn't. When has not having a market ever really stopped a perpetually money-losing flag carrier from doing something strange?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it is just kind of like a bragging right thing. Hey, we have a nonstop flight from Bangkok to wherever. I mean, and that's the debate right now is where would this flight go? Because, it makes sense to go to San Francisco because of the United Star Alliance connections. But in the press release that Thai released, they said, oh, well, we might fly to Seattle. Now, how does that make any sense?
It's shorter.
I guess, but I mean, even then, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
also, the Star Alliance connections are worthless unless there's a joint venture, and United's got ANA for that.
That's not necessarily true that it's worthless. They can still do code shares. It doesn't need to be a JV.
They could. They don't currently have them, and they have ANA for that.
Right, but Thai could just, or they could just allow UA flights on the domestic portions to get onward traffic.
Yeah, they could. They could sell it, right? Does United really want to sell at a discount that capacity to Thai Airways?
True.
Arguably, they never did it for Singapore.
No, but the
right?
flip
And that's
side
why
is,
Singapore went for Virgin America as a partner. 2019 for the new runway extension.
Okay.
Sorry, my Google skills are a little slow this evening thanks to these deliciously frozen watermelon balls and vodka.
So I mean, I think so. That's a good point, though. If it's and on the flip side too, because Bangkok is great for connecting to most of Southeast Asia, right? I mean, it's down there. It's close to Singapore. It's kind of close to everything, and they have a decent number of flights everywhere. Now, I think the general consensus is that Thai Airways isn't the greatest airline to fly on, but I mean, I can remember reading trip reports like 5 years ago where people were like, "Oh my gosh, Thai Airways is amazing," and
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you go to Flyer Talk and it's like, "Oh my gosh, they have Krug or whatever it was," but so I'm mocking.
And the massage.
I'm mocking.
The massage was nice enough, but
I'm mocking half our listenership. I apologize. I don't mean to sound snooty. I just think it's interesting because now you talk to people on Twitter or something, and people are like, "Oh, well, Thai is just a complete disaster of an airline." And
to be fair, Thai was always very, very inconsistent on service delivery.
Yeah.
To put it mildly, right? The crews were all over the place. Who was it? Someone was saying the other day they got on a flight in Thai on a 787 and there were no headphones loaded.
Yeah.
And so they didn't in business class, so they didn't turn on the IFE system.
Yeah, they said, "Oh, well, we have our own," and they said, "That's too bad because not everyone else does, so we're not going to turn it on."
Yeah, it would be unfair to the other passengers if we let you watch the IFE on your own headphones because we don't have ones to give them. And I'm sure somewhere someone at Thai Airways thought that was a good idea. Probably not at headquarters, but a flight attendant thought that was a good idea. And it's just that level of batshit sometimes.
Yep.
And I feel like it's always been that way, even back when they were quote unquote amazing to fly on.
Yeah. I think Foz had something to say. He breathed heavily there.
No, I mean, I flew Thai first years ago from Zurich to Bangkok. I mean, it was a really good experience. But, I mean, how does it compare to the others? I don't think it was at the same level as ANA or Singapore, but, I mean, it wasn't a bad experience. I think a lot of Thai's challenges are operational.
Yeah.
But the counterpoint is, I mean, what are the chances that United might consider code sharing since they've abandoned Bangkok altogether?
I think very low because they have the ANA connection with the joint venture.
Yeah, they're
but
really...
nonstop will trump a connection.
I mean, they're really deeply in bed with ANA. They're really deeply in bed with ANA.
I understand you saying that, Foz. Like, right, all else being equal, I will take a nonstop over connection most of the time. But whether I don't know that I'm not sure they'd be allowed to by the DOT, for example, because of the ANA joint venture.
Well, that's a different issue.
And that's, I guess, skipping beyond if they want to, if they'd be allowed to. But I just don't know.
It's an interesting. I mean, I don't see Thai actually going through with it. I just have this feeling that they're not going to actually do it, or they'll try it and it'll last however long, and then it'll just go away. Who knows? The other line is Singapore. Speaking of Southeast Asia, Singapore Airlines has said that they are no longer going to fly Houston, Moscow, Singapore, which was their one-stop service to one-stop service to Singapore from Houston. They're now going to fly Houston, Manchester, Singapore, which is an interesting proposition. I think it's an interesting change. I guess there is some demand for Houston, Manchester because of oil, even though oil's weak right now. There's still a lot of oil business in England. What do you guys think?
Sure.
That random. I mean, it is pretty random.
They got to stop somewhere.
Yeah.
And if they want to continue serving Houston, I mean, it's as good an idea as anything else they could come up with, right? Where else would you stop? I guess is what I would say. Manchester's a relatively big city.
Yeah, when we were first talking about it, I thought maybe Barcelona, because of just a Spanish connection made sense to me, because I thought that the Sao Paulo, I thought that was going away. Sao Paulo.
It is. But Barcelona's getting dropped now as a Milan tag flight.
So now they're going to fly that domestically within Europe.
Right, and
Barcelona, fifth Freedom Schengen flight, yeah.
And Barcelona never had a first.
Oh, gotcha.
It had gone to business at one point.
Yep. Yeah, so I mean, I guess Manchester makes some sense. I guess they looked at the map and they said, well, we can't fly London, we can't fly Munich, we can't fly Amsterdam because there's a lot of traffic there. We can't fly Frankfurt. Manchester it is.
Right, yeah, they're looking for an unserved market that has a decent number of people, a decent amount of demand, and there will be, I suppose, a certain number, if they can get the sort of onward connection with Flybe sorted out, a certain number of people, I assume Flybe, that will continue on to Aberdeen or wherever else up off the coast there towards oil and gas world.
Yeah. And I mean, I bet they're carrying a decent amount of cargo, and that's probably the reason they want to keep the Houston route, because they're still carrying decent loads, and I bet that in Manchester they could probably add some cargo there as well if they needed to, in a significant number. So it makes sense. It's interesting. I might try to get it. I might try to get that line. Houston Manchester is kind of random. I missed the Houston Stavanger route before it went away, so I should at least try to get this one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and we can talk, I think next up was to talk a little bit about Manchester and things you should do while you're there.
Yeah, let's do it. You guys both have been to Manchester this year, so recently.
Yeah, I was given advice by Foz on where to find the best lawn in the country.
And did you find it?
I did. It was huge. It was definitely the largest lawn I've had. I mean, I shared the picture of it with like a beer bottle next to it. People are like, no, I need a sense of scale. I was like, right, those are full-size beer bottles, and no one believed me. It was probably 2.5 feet tall for the small piece of naan. That said, I ordered the garlic naan, and I thought it wasn't quite garlicky enough.
I mean, I only got the regular naan, and it wasn't bad. But I mean, the display was far more impressive than the naan, quite frankly.
Yeah, that comes like on a towel rack on your table, essentially. Like it hangs there, and you just have to and you rip it off. It's not on a plate. It's kind of awesome.
Yeah. So Manchester, it seems like it's kind of a random city. I don't know a ton about it, but what did you do when you were in Manchester? What do you do when you're in Manchester?
I went to the airport and hung out.
I walked around aimlessly in the city. I mean,
I watched a awkward brawl unfold on the street in front of me.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, you could always go to Manchester United game if they're playing. That was one of the big things my coworkers wanted to do. But I mean, it's a much smaller town, so most people's exposure to England cities is London. And at least when I went to Manchester, I was amazed at how much easier it is to navigate. I had a car; I was able to drive right into the city and drive right out without any problems, which I would never do in London.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, it's still 2.5 million people. Liverpool is just due west by 45 minutes or so on the train, maybe an hour. And when I was flying over it, Liverpool actually looked awesome flying over. I did not make the day trip over to get there. I actually literally did go back out to the airport. I had a meeting with Thomas Cook Airlines to get there. And so, as part of my work while I was in town. So I did have to actually go back out to the airport and do that. But the airport, if you're into plane spotting, has a huge, not huge, but a very nicely sized park and spotters area where you can, they have mounds built up where you can sit and be above the fence line so your, shots aren't obscured and watch the planes come and go. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And it's like a short bus ride from the terminal, or an 8-pound Uber is what I ended up paying.
Now, was your perception of that airport that was much larger than that city might normally have?
It is a big airport, sure. I'll give you that.
Because I'm
not sure what it deserves necessarily as a city, but it is a big airport. It's 3 terminals. It's a huge low-cost carrier hub, too.
Yeah, because I walked from, T3 to T1, and it was a haul.
Yeah, and I feel like 3 and 1 are next to each other, and 2's on the other side, maybe?
Something like
so
that, yeah.
Yeah, if you had to do the full walk, it's like 20 minutes or so outside. It's a long ways.
But it has the raised walkway that goes all the way through, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, except that one section that's not ventilated.
Yeah, it is a little toasty.
Especially on the hottest day of the year they'd had so far when I was walking through it. It was awesome. I was half expecting to see people like just passed out in the hallway because it was that bad. It was like a sauna inside. But yeah, no, I actually liked it well enough from a facilities perspective outside. My flights out were on, I guess I came in on Flybe and flew out on Aer Lingus, and both of those are Aer Lingus? Yeah, Aer Lingus, Ryanair, one of the two. I think I actually flew out on Ryanair. And both of those were in T3, I think, which was the old domestic terminal that had been converted for international service. And it was dire inside, to say the least. Just overcrowded, minimal concessions, no PowerPoints anywhere, unless you paid to sit in a restaurant and could score one of the tables that had a power outlet.
Doesn't sound like the most fun.
No, and like I booked a late flight expecting to have work, and work canceled, and so I got to the airport earlier than I should have or would have anyways. But I ended up sitting there for several hours and got some great pictures of planes landing because there was, where we were sitting, where the terminal is set up, there's some good views of the runway, but just like nothing in terms of services in that one terminal. And maybe the other ones are better, but that one was pretty dire.
No, they were all pretty abysmal.
Yeah. On the plus side, their Twitter team responded, "Gosh, Seth, what's wrong?" And I said, "Well, for starters, I started sending them pictures of all the things that were wrong. Eventually I got a thank you for your feedback. We'll take this under advisement kind of response, but I don't think that they actually are happy with me right now."
Well, do you think it's because, all the low cost carriers are pretty cheap and they're not going to pay for like improvements? So it's like, well, we're not going to improve anything.
Yeah, I mean, right, yes. Any of those costs or any of those improvements would be passed through as higher gate fees to the airlines operating, and none of them want to pay it.
Yep.
So,
yep.
And at the end of the day, right, I mean, I still bought the ticket and I'd still do it again. So I'll just, sit here and gripe about it instead.
So would you guys go back to Manchester and just like make a trip, like spend a little bit of time in Manchester and then head to Liverpool?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a combination of the two cities is a fun weekend.
Yeah. Nice
again, they didn't actually make it. Yeah, it didn't actually make it to Liverpool, but it looked really cool from the air. So
yeah, Liverpool's interested me, so I'd go. Good to know. Oh, excuse me. So I saw a funny tweet today, and it just goes down in the list of kind of stupid stuff that United does.
Bad airline tweets. Yeah. So Cyrus Hostetler, who is I believe he's a javelin. He throws javelin in the Olympics. He's an Olympic athlete. He tweeted Javelinier.
Javelinier, yeah, is that the word? He tweeted.
I just made it up, but sure.
He tweeted, "United Airlines is our Olympic sponsor, but I just paid a bunch of money to upgrade to Economy Plus, and homage to Rolo." And United
hashtag Road to Rio. Come on.
Hashtag Road to Rio. United replies back, "Hey Cyrus, we appreciate you investing in flying with us. Go Team USA." That might be the worst tweet ever.
Well,
in recent history that I've thought of with
don't make me bring up certain no longer existed airline, and
I was thinking the same one.
Because there's no airline's ever going to beat that in terms of awful.
Yeah. But I mean, it's pretty bad.
Aside, vulgarities. This is awful, right? There's roughly zero excuse for this.
Yeah, and
I mean, Go Team is, acknowledge that they know who he is, right? They recognize the relationship, and part of that probably goes to, could the U.S. Olympic Committee not have negotiated, and hey, by the way, our athletes get like free economy plus or even upgrade, standby only, or, I don't know, some way of doing that. But, yeah, this is like, hey, yeah, we did screw you. Congratulations. Good luck.
Yeah.
It just reads horribly. And United's not the only one to do it, but they do it plenty. And is figuring out context on tweets really that hard?
I don't think so. I mean, I would read this if I read it and I was like, if I was working for an airline, I'd go, oh, I just paid a bunch of money. Okay, that's probably a negative statement. It's not like he's bragging. To upgrade to Economy Plus. So it just takes some time to read it. And I feel like they read things kind of quickly and are like, oh, look, we got one of the Olympians is tweeting here. Tell him good luck. And then they just move on. I don't know. And I feel like if they really wanted to do something, be like, hey, we refunded your Economy Plus money. Good luck or something. That would be better. That would be much better than what they tweeted.
Well, odds are they don't have the authority to make the dollars and cents decision like that.
True.
So the smart play is just ignore it.
That's true as well. Just they pretended he didn't write anything.
Right. At some point, and I've said this a lot, not every tweet deserves a response, and I get annoyed that Delta and American feel otherwise. But clearly not every tweet deserves a response. Sometimes someone just needs to vent. And, if your response is, gee, thanks for your loyalty every time, or a third of the time, that's not a useful tweet. That's not a useful message. That just pisses people off more.
Yeah.
Much like this one certainly does. And so not every tweet deserves a response. And sometimes you got to let people vent their frustrations, express their concerns, and then, he's going to go to Rio. He hopefully won't go swimming or drink any water while he's there, and, might live to tell the tale. But in the meantime, it's a ridiculous sort of... The choice to respond was strange, and certainly the response given was awful.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway. Lastly, this is a topic that I was kind of ranting on for a while about United's analysts, their market analysts, if you can even call them that, saying that United needs to close a hub and then pointing the finger at Dulles as the hub that they need to close. And people actually taking this seriously and thinking that United is going to close the capital hub, in air quotes. I do air quotes a lot. We need to do a video podcast.
God help us all. Mostly the listeners, but, us too.
And I just think it's ridiculous. And I was having this discussion with some people on Twitter, and it doesn't make any sense. Getting rid of Dulles doesn't make any sense from any point of view. If you're going to get rid of a hub and not call it a hub anymore, Dulles is not the one you get rid of. LAX first on the list, right? That's my opinion.
LAX has a lot of O&D traffic.
Oh, Foz, you and your O&D at LAX. I think United is struggling more at LAX than anywhere else. I think Dulles just looks bad on paper because Newark is right there.
Don't underestimate the United loyalists in Southern California.
Well, what's that? They're killing Santa Maria, San Francisco, because that's an essential air route, so they can't make it work on a CRJ financially. So I'm not surprised because they killed most of the other EAS routes already. Yeah, it's just that SoCal loyalty you talk about. I'm questioning it because
I mean,
that used to be an LA flight on an E120 though, right?
It used to be out of LAX. Yeah.
Yeah, on a 120. So. I don't know. San Diego, yeah. LAX, yeah. I loyal or not, I don't care. I think the whole concept that one of these has to die is rooted in the concept that PRASM is the most significant measure of value of an airline known to man, which all of the analysts lately seem to be harping on dramatically, mostly because it's not increasing at all. And, during the Southwest earnings call earlier this month, or I guess last month now, for the 2Q Southwest call, one of the analysts gets on and saying, don't you think you should stop expansion? And to their credit, the Southwest executive, I think it was Gary Kelly, but I'm not sure, CEO, says, yeah, we recognize now that our expansion plans for the second half of the year are probably too aggressive, but we can't come up with a way that is financially accretive to not do it. Right? So they're acknowledging that they're growing too quickly, but they can't stop. And a follow-up question was, well, then aren't you part of the problem? Which was this sort of like bizarre, awkward pause in the call. It was great. I kind of want to go back and listen to it again just for entertainment at this point.
Maybe we should insert it in the show. If you can find it, let's cut it out.
See if I can find it. I'll cut it in there. Yeah.
My second question, I guess you mentioned in your remarks that you have not gotten to a scenario where taking capacity out is profit accretive. I guess how much further would unit revenues have to fall in order for capacity reductions to make sense?
Well, I'm sorry, I can't do that math in my head. And again, my answer with Mike Lindenberg earlier was specific to the fourth quarter. So we looked at some fourth quarter capacity changes that we could make, and none of those looked productive to us. So it will be, we'll spend our time better working on 2017. So the hypothetical you're asking, I can't readily answer, but clearly that's something that we'll want to look at here for 2017.
Challenging and potentially differentiated, line of questioning. Second question, you've got weak PRASM. As Tammy pointed out, you've got load factors at record highs. You've inflicted a pretty sizable fuel headwind on yourselves, and you're guiding to a year-on-year earnings decline. So why do you routinely ignore industry initiatives intended to restore pricing stability? Or put differently, why does Southwest potentially choose to be part of the problem instead of part of the solution? Thanks in advance.
Well, I am unclear as to how we are part of the problem. So feel free to elaborate, and I'll do my best to answer.
It was this weird view everybody has that RASM and PRASM are the key to defining whether airlines are profitable or not. We had an Alaska Airlines executive fight back saying, why don't you guys look at profit instead of PRASM? Isn't profit more important? And all the analysts, of course, say no. So there's that. And even that was like the CFO and his CEO was like, settle down there, Tiger, and pulled him back a little bit. So it's a really interesting situation right now where essentially the analysts are getting all up on the airline saying you've got to cut growth. And what's hard is you take a JetBlue or an Alaska or a Virgin America or someone like that, they're not going to stop growing.
Yeah.
And they've got lower cost structures, so they can arguably afford to do it a little longer and faster and better than the big guys. So if what you care about is PRASM and you recognize that others are growing faster than the economy, right? Theoretically, ASM should grow parallel to GDP. And ASMs are in fact growing 6 to 8% as opposed to 2 to 3%, so double to triple GDP.
Yep.
At some point, someone's got to stop doing the growing to help balance it out. And United and Delta and American are 0 to negative, relatively speaking, are trying to do that, but they can't slow down enough to offset the growth elsewhere. And as we were talking about at Newark earlier, if Virgin America shows up and adds more transcons, if Alaska shows up and adds a bunch of flights, if Allegiant and Spirit and all these other guys show up and add a bunch of flights, United can't just say, oh, well, PRASM guidance says we have to not move.
Yeah.
And United's doing a decent job of pulling it down at Houston to augment San Francisco and Denver, for example. But at some point, like, you can't grow by shrinking. You can't grow to success by shrinking a company. That's almost universally impossible. And so all these analysts saying that that's what they have to do is bizarre to me.
Well, in the fact that they're chasing the PRASM, that the analysts are chasing PRASM, and they're chasing revenue, right? So they're chasing Delta's quarterly earnings calls where they get these huge numbers, right? That's what they're chasing from an analyst standpoint. That's what they want.
Mm-hmm.
That can't continue indefinitely, right? That's economically impossible unless unless someone slows down.
To stay low.
Yeah.
These profit numbers aren't impossible to maintain, but it's basically predicated on fuel costs.
Yeah. And so if fuel starts going back up, then we see the revenues start coming back down again. And does the market...
We see profits coming down.
We see profits coming down. But does the market contract itself and then solve the issue for everyone? There's an equilibrium in there somewhere. There has to be. And
yes.
I mean, I'm getting into like real economics here, so I could...
No, of course there's equilibrium, right? As costs go up and demand goes down, you obviously cut supply.
Yep.
But, the real question there is how do you cut it and who can afford to do so reasonably? Southwest, one of the reasons they can't cut right now is they're taking delivery of all these new planes and they need to have them flying to make money.
Yep.
Because they're taking them new. Allegiant buys second and third hand rust buckets, flies them until they're ready to crash, and then retires them and, buys new rust buckets.
And pays the FAA fines for,
Yeah. But also recently just ordered a handful of new A319s because they were so ridiculously cheap from Airbus to sort of fill the gap in the production lines before the next Neos come out.
Well, so for another example, though, I mean, now you have United. You and I both saw the China Southern. The first China Southern delivered United jet rolled out of the hangar in Houston.
It's in service.
It's in service now. So now they're gonna start rolling these jets in. I can't remember how many they took. What was it, 30 or something that they bought?
It wasn't a ton, but those are also replacing 45s, the 50-seaters.
Yep.
145s. And again, when you're buying the used ones like that, and Delta is in a great position like this too. They've got a bunch of old airplanes. You can stand down the old ones that you already own.
Yep. Your
cost to do that is relatively low. When you have to stand down a brand new 737NG, you're in trouble.
Yep. I agree.
So that's part of why, American right now of the big three or big four is the most aggressive in taking new airplanes, but United's not that far behind. United's answer to that will be if they had to, they'll stand down the 744s even faster.
And I think part of my point though, Seth, with the growth or the economic growth it's impossible is that the way that they're going to now increase revenue, specifically PRASM, is ancillaries, right? I mean that's really the answer. And
it's that and more seats on the same plane.
Yeah, and so that's
those are super cheap ASMs.
And that's what we're getting. So we're getting now 10 across 777s on American. We're getting 10 across 777s on United. I'm sure Delta's got that plan at some point. And then we're getting the basic economy fares on the airlines because look, hey, now we can charge more if you want to up fare or you want to choose your seat before you fly. Now we can charge you more. So we're doing this kind of to ourselves, right? The analysts are doing this to us. And
but remember, with Delta, as far as 777s, they only have 20. They don't have nearly as much exposure as the other two.
True, but they're gonna eventually take A350s, right?
Yeah, but those will almost certainly be 9 across, not 10.
Okay, well that's good news for everybody.
They'll get 350s when they're in the secondhand market.
They've got that order just like the 787 order, man. Don't worry about it.
It's in 20 years. 20 years.
Exactly.
But also, American was supposed to take 350s next year, and they postponed them a couple. So the big guys are slowing growth right now. Also, I'm sure they won't admit it, but Airbus is probably a little happy to have some breathing room on the 350s because they can't actually deliver them on time yet. So, oopsie.
So do you think...
I would argue that American doesn't want the 350s yet because I don't think they can operationally support them properly.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you think...
Well, hang on a second. Sorry, Stephen. I want to delve into that more with Fox. Do you think operationally support them from don't know how to manage a new type in the fleet? Or can't fill planes?
The first, because I still think they're struggling with the U.S. air challenges, with the U.S. air fleets. Having just flown a 330 last week, or 2 weeks ago, there were definitely some hiccups in operations.
Interesting. I don't know. Part of me wonders if when they come in, they could just bring them in the same way they did the 77Ws, and it would be easy to bring them online, regardless of who's flying them, bring them online as though they were a new type that they'd already done before, as opposed to integrating what someone else had previously done and trying to change things.
Maybe. But I mean, I don't know the details on how who would get seniority on those.
That's fair.
Do you think then that we'll see in the next, I don't know, 3-5? Here's the problem. It's unpredictable, right? The next 5 years, because we don't know what fuel's going to do. It's likely that fuel will eventually come up. But do you think that we'll see growth from the big guys? There has to be some growth, right? They have to. Mm-hmm. United's already expanding San Francisco. But do you think they're going to be much more focused on where their growth is coming from? Because it looks like Delta said, okay, LA is really going to be our West Coast hub. I mean, that's with their new terminal that they're going to.
No, man, Seattle.
Yeah, I think that if anyone should kill a hub, it should be Delta. And it should be Seattle. That's reality.
This is also Delta's third coming of an LAX hub.
Yeah, but I mean, it sounds.
You think there's a chance they go back to DFW for a hub?
No.
I mean,
sorry, I was joking. I promise.
Was that a bait? Were you trying to? Was that another trap? There's a lot of traps in this.
I'm trying.
No. They're going to go to Ontario. Ontario's finally going to get the hub they've been wanting.
Oh.
Oh man. I think that maybe this time LAX is actually getting the treatment from Delta that it deserves. Like Delta's saying, okay, we're actually going to invest and build these two terminals out. We're going to make it central to our business. And that kind of says to Seattle, well, we're not going to focus on you, even though they've said we're going to expand up there.
So they're waiting on Seattle to build the extra gates, right?
Yes.
That's what they claim. But the reality is Delta historically likes fortress hubs.
Yeah.
Right? Go back to old Delta, Cincinnati, Salt Lake, Atlanta. Yeah. Right? Those were the three hubs because they were all fortress. Why did they leave DFW? Because they didn't have fortress. LAX has just too much competition. United and American have a loyal customer base in Southern California. Delta does not.
You think so?
Yeah.
I just think, why would you spend the money then to build out this new
because
terminal?
Delta's approaching the market differently. They don't really care about long-term repeated business. They want all the ancillary. They want the one-off star who will sit, Hollywood person who will sit on their plane once in a while. They don't care about corporate discounts or anything. They want the person who will pay full price. So they don't care about the recurring business from an established revenue stream. They would rather go off to the individuals.
And so if they market it right, they feel like they can earn that. Okay.
But they're more tied to disposable income because of that.
Gotcha. So in a crappy economy, you think Delta suffers more?
Yeah, because they don't have any sort of corporate contracts that guarantee revenue.
Yeah. It's an interesting thought, Foz. I don't disagree. I would need to see it. I need to see it play out. I need to see what happens with LA. But
it's an interesting view concern. They've said that their corporate revenue share is growing. I don't know if it's LA or not, but they're definitely talking about corporate revenue share growing.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is, but I don't think it's in LA, and I don't think it's growing as big as the others.
And so I guess the point is Dulles isn't going to be the one to close. I don't think United's going to close Dulles. There is essential stuff going on at Dulles. What would be nice is actually kind of an expansion of Dulles, of flights in and out of Dulles.
No, because what's going to happen is this is going to become a stalemate with the Washington Metro airports because they want a new terminal. They're not giving it to them. They want United to pay for it. So what I actually foresee is a drop in the regional shift in the regional traffic, possibly to Newark, possibly somewhere else, to drive people away from Dulles. So I don't think Dulles is going to go away, but I think it's going to be more of an O&D than connecting.
That could happen. Makes me kind of sad.
Why, you miss the moon rovers?
Yeah, no, I just think it's a good connection point, and I feel like it's a bad move for United to say, well, because we didn't get the terminal, we're gonna make everybody else suffer. Because, like we've talked about earlier, we just said Newark is gonna have issues. They're gonna have delays. Dulles has plenty of runways. They got plenty of taxiways. They got plenty of parking spots.
Right, but think about it. At Newark, right? People will just be stuck in the terminal, so they're making money beaucoup off OTG.
Well, just get OTG to come into Dulles then.
Well, but they're not going to invest in Dulles. What are you going to do? Build in temporary trailers? Honestly, with a lot, I suspect a lot of the secondary routes might start disappearing out of Dulles because remember, United made that their transatlantic hub. They have Newark, they can move a lot of those flights to Chicago.
True.
Things like Geneva and Zurich. Why not fly them from Chicago?
Oh, just what Chicago needs. More traffic. That's just what.
Well, that operation is mostly smoothed out. I don't think that putting more traffic in Chicago would be the end of the world. But to that point, why do you have all those flights from Dulles? Because of the government, among other things. And we've already seen that they've lost a bunch of GSA fares for co-chairs and partners that, subsidies. Yay. If we're going to play that game. But I don't know that I'm in trouble articulating this. I'm sorry. If they give up on those things and they start to lose out on some of that government business that they were running for so long, I wonder if that doesn't eat into the viability of the hub in general. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, they have a lot of government contractors, but there's a lot of government. There's a lot of government organizations, but there's a lot of government contractors that are based there too. They still need to fly, so they're not necessarily tied to the GSA structure.
Fair point.
So
I agree to that.
I like Zurich. I could see Zurich going away because Swiss flies it, and they can sell it as a co-chair.
And that's a joint venture, right?
Yeah. And Frankfurt, do we need 3 flights?
True. I think they do. I think they do a ton of traffic though to Frankfurt. I mean, that's really become their.
A lot of that's onward connection too.
Yeah, I think that's really their European transfer point at this point.
But are they better off doing Dulles Frankfurt or going into Newmarket and flying Frankfurt?
Well, I think
London's another example.
True.
Well, you think they would cut back at London frequencies?
I mean, they have 3 flights to London. Do they need 3? They could go to 2 and fly somewhere else. I mean, maybe they go try some of the stuff that Delta is doing and going to secondary markets or non-hubs.
To grow, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by that, you're talking about like the Pittsburgh-Paris flight that Delta runs.
Right. Or, look at Delta. Boston, Amsterdam, Boston, London. Boston, Paris.
Ooh.
Yeah, JetBlue's going to take them on that, though. So,
They could come to Portland. They'd make me happy. Portland, London, man. Then I have to fly them and not Delta.
Philadelphia, London on a 7.5.
Oh, God. Now you're just being mean.
I just found out Delta's actually flying that. I did not realize that.
It's interesting. You make some good points, Foz. I will give you that. I don't know that I agree completely, but I definitely don't see them killing it off. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think they're going to kill it off. I think it's going to get a Houston treatment where it's going to get downsized a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is only right in Houston. They say they're going to grow back when the time comes. So.
And my argument with United is I think they need to start focusing a little away from the hubs to grow their market. Because all the low-cost carriers are going to attack the hubs.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think our listeners have stopped listening now because it's been an hour. Just kidding. No, I think it's a great topic, and we can talk about it more next time. I think it's time to wrap up though. It's if you're listening to the show and you want to leave a comment or tweet us, you can find us on Twitter @DotsLines. You can find us on the internet moredotsmorelines.com. We're on iTunes. I think that's pretty much where we're at. We're on Facebook too, but we don't post there much anymore. But thanks for listening, and we'll talk.
We're on Google Play. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
But there's apparently like an iTunes sort of podcast thing that Google runs.
Oh. Well, there you go. We're on Google Play. So leave us a comment. Leave us a comment. Leave us a tweet. We'd love to hear from you. But until next time, happy flying. Bye.
Bye-bye.